It's got over 200,000 miles on it. We'll do everything that a regular car review does. We'll What's up, guys? Joel from Malicious Mischief. We're here for our very first used or abused show. The idea behind the used or abused show is that there's a lot of reviews on brand new cars, but there's not so many on used cars. And a lot of times you can pick up a pretty nice used car for under $10,000, under $5,000. For these used or abused reviews, we're going to do everything that you would normally see in a regular car review on a new car. We're going to go around the exterior, we're going to look at all the features, we're going to look at the condition, we're going to check out the interior, and then we're going to road test it. The difference is going to be that we're going to show you how these things hold up when they've got 100,000, 200,000 or more miles on them, so that you can get a good idea when you go to buy one of what you might be able to get your hands on. If it's a good vehicle, we go through everything and we decide that it's a good buy, then it's a used vehicle and we'll rate it as used. We'll tell you all the good points and all the bad points that we can come across. If it's not a good vehicle, then we're going to rate it as abused. And that'll be one that we don't recommend that you buy for the reasons that we'll give you in the show. So this is the first one, giving you a little explanation of what we're doing. We're going to be doing on this 2006 Ford Ranger, and we're going to go ahead and get started on that right now. All right, guys, so first thing we thought we'd give you is a little history on the Ranger. Ford's been using the Ranger name since 1965, but back then it was a trim package on Ford F-Series trucks as well as on the Ford Bronco. Now, Ford had been making a compact pickup to compete with the likes of Toyota and Datsun Nissan since 1972, but they called it the Courier, and it was actually a rebadged Mazda B1800. However, in 1983, Ford introduced their own pickup in North America called the Ranger, replacing the Courier as Ford's compact pickup truck. Ford produced the Ranger in the US from 1983 until 2012, and then started producing it again in 2019 to present. For this video, we're going to focus on just that first production run. We'll try to get our hands on a new Ranger here soon so we can do a side-by-side comparison for you, but today's video is all about the original. So for that first run, Ford used the same chassis architecture for the entire 29-year production, with major redesigns in 1993 and 1998. The very last Ford Ranger rolled off the line at the Twin Cities Assembly Plant on December 22nd, 2011. It was white, extended cab, four-wheel drive. Ford gave this truck to their longtime customer Orkin, the pest control company who had famously been using the Ranger in their fleet since it was introduced. The truck was put to work in Gainesville, Georgia, where, and oh, this is so sad, it was in an accident and it was totaled in 2014. Yeah, that sucks. Maybe we can get our hands on that Ranger, figure out what happened to it, and maybe rebuild it. It just seems wrong that the last Ranger isn't out there doing Ranger things. I'd like to get that fixed. Through some potential confusion that Ford wanted to resolve, Orkin also got the second to last Ranger, and as far as we can tell from our research, that one is still alive and well and working for Orkin. All right, back to the business at hand. The first gen Ranger was built from 1983 to 1988. It was incredibly boxy. Originally, you could only get a regular cab with either a long bed or a regular bed, and you could get it in 4x4 or 4x2 options. You could also get it as a manual or an automatic, and it came with 4 different engine options, the most powerful of which was a 2.8 liter V6 that made, wait for it, 115 horsepower. In 1986, that was upgraded to a 2.9 liter 140 horsepower engine. I had one of those in high school. Mine was red. It was a regular cab, extended bed, and it had the 2.9. It was not fast. And that automatic blew up spectacularly 6 months after I bought it. If we were doing this used and abused about that truck, it would definitely be rated abused. Now, this first gen Ranger got a styling update in 1989. I had one of these too, a 1992 5-speed super cab with the 4-liter V6, and that was a great truck. I wish I still had it. The second gen was made from 1993 to 1997. Various family members have had these trucks, and they've ranged from solid, reliable to my dad's 1997 he bought in about 1988, which is downright unkillable. That sucker's been hit 5 or 6 times. It's had its door torn off when somebody in the family backed it out of the garage with the door open. Has like 250,000 miles on it. It still has its original engine. You can't kill it. Trust me, my family has tried over and over. All right, that brings us to the 3rd generation Ranger, which was produced from 1998 until 2012. That's what we have here in this beautiful 2006 example that is our reviewee for today. For those of you who watch the channel, you know this belongs to my son Ty and used to belong to Jake. Ty and I flew up to upstate Idaho and picked it up. I'll link that video at the end of this one for those of you who are interested, and you can check out Jake's 590 horsepower Roush Raptor that replaced this Ranger. We drove this Ranger down from Idaho. It was a beautiful drive, and I thought you might like to see a quick montage of that trip. Enjoy this, and then we'll get into the actual used or abused review for this 2006 Ford Ranger. Hey guys, we are stopping in Missoula to get some fuel. It's been a nice, beautiful ride. Truck's doing fantastic. It's been doing about 80 miles an hour without any problem at all. And we're giving it its first fill up. So we'll catch you back on the road. Okay guys, so let's start on the exterior here. This is, as we mentioned, 2006 Ford Ranger. This is the 3rd generation, and this particular one has a 4-liter V6 in it. It's got an automatic transmission. It's 4-wheel drive. It's a super cab with a regular bed. These trucks could be had as a super cab or a regular cab, and they could have a regular bed or a long bed. Okay, this truck has the 4-liter V6 in it. The truck was available with either a 2.3 or 2.5 liter 4-cylinder, depending on the year, a 3-liter V6, and then the 4-liter V6 that's in this one. It was also available with a 5-speed stick or a 5-speed automatic transmission. This one's got the 5-speed automatic in it. It's got a Borg-Warner transfer case in it, and then it's got a Ford, produced by Ford rear axle. Okay, this has got a semi-floating rear axle in it. Let's talk about that. What exactly does a semi-floating, you may have heard that term, semi-floating or full floating. What does that mean? So semi-floating means that the wheel itself, right here, this hub, is attached to the axle assembly. The axle bolts in here through these bolts right here and goes directly to the axle, which runs, let's see if you can see it, back inside there to the differential. So there's a C-clip on the end of that thing, and if you pull that C-clip, this entire wheel, axle, and everything will come right off the truck. So that is a semi-floating, meaning that the axle semi-floats inside here. The weight of the vehicle is carried by the axle shaft itself, not the actual axle housing. On a full floating, the actual wheel assembly here is bolted to the axle assembly, the outside part. So the shaft inside, the axle shaft, is full floating, doesn't carry any weight. If that axle shaft were to come completely out of the vehicle, the tire and wheel can stay on there. So for normal purposes, most vehicles, most light duty 4x4 trucks like this Ranger are semi-floating. That's totally normal. That's completely acceptable. It's a fine way to build them. If you're going to be doing a lot of off-roading or you're going to be doing a lot of heavy hauling, then you're going to want a full floating, because if you're way off in the woods, way off in the on the trails and you break an axle, you're going to lose the rear wheel completely. Whereas if you've got a full floater, you can break the axle, you just won't have any power anymore, but you can continue to go forward. So that's just a little information on full floating versus semi-floating. Again, this has got a semi-floating. Okay, as you can see, this truck's sitting pretty level. They don't normally sit like this. This one has a leveling kit on it where the front end has been lifted up to level it out relative to the back end. So this one's sitting perfectly level. Normally you'll see them sit down a little bit in the front. The other thing that this one has got that is not standard is it has airbags in the back. Let's see if we can get a look at those. Okay, so there's the airbags right there that Jake had installed. Those can be pumped up using this lever right here. Okay, there's the control for the airbag system. This is not airbags like a lowrider that can lift and lower the car. These are helper bags that go on the suspension in the back. And if you overload the rear end, put too much weight in the bed, then you can bump up the helpers right there and it'll level the bed back out and help control the ride. It's actually pretty awesome. It's really neat that this truck's got it. I don't expect to use it a whole lot, so I don't think Tyler's going to be doing a whole lot of hauling, but he's also planning on keeping this truck forever. So if he does need to do some heavy duty hauling, he'll be able to do that. All right, this truck's got the 4-liter overhead cam motor in it. So this is a V6 with 2 overhead cams, single cams on each side. Produces 207 horsepower, 238 pounds of torque. It's a good engine. Very reliable. It's got a great reputation, and actually these things have got tons and tons of miles on them out there. If you search on YouTube or Google, you'll see that there's just a ton of them that are making high mileage. This one has 247,000 miles on it. It is all original and it's in great shape. Jake has always changed the oil with a synthetic blend, so it's had DuraBlend its whole life, and that's definitely, I'm sure, contributing to the longevity of the motor, but overall this is a very reliable engine. Okay, one of the nice things about buying a used vehicle is that sometimes you get extra stuff that you didn't have to pay to put in. For example, this K&N cold air intake that Jake has installed on here, that is super cool. We've taken out the restrictive factory air box and we've replaced it with this high flowing K&N. I know that K&N looks a little dirty there for those of you who are sharp-eyed. It's actually got black oil on it. So the oil was dyed black when we cleaned it. I don't know why. Normally it's red, so that you can tell that it's nice and clean, but that oil was black. So there we go. Okay, this truck has got some pretty cool aftermarket stuff on it that Jake's put on. For example, let's take a look at this right here. This, let's see if you can see that right there. That is Line-X spray liner. It's been sprayed all along the rocker panels on both sides of the truck. I remember when Jake got this done, it was actually kind of a big deal. The shop kept messing it up. I think they had to do it like 3 times. But it's fantastic because any of the rocks that get thrown up on the side here are just going to bounce off of that Line-X. And normally when you're looking at a used vehicle like this, especially one with as many miles as this has got on it, you're going to see lots of paint chips, rock chips, and things like that down here where it's been hit. But this Line-X solves all of that. So it's relatively easy thing to get done. You just take it into a shop that does the Line-X work and they can just spray that on your existing vehicle. Nice thing is if you do have a lot of rock chips and stuff like that, this Line-X will go right over that and hide all those things and look good and then protect it from doing it again. All right, something else that we've got here from Jake is, let's see if you can see it here on the front. We've got a clear bra, and Jake installed this. It's going over the front of the paint, the hood right here. It's also over the headlights, and it's over the bumper. So on the front of the vehicle here, we've got it all over the bumper, we've got it on the headlights, and we've got it up here on the paint. So this is doing a fantastic job of protecting this truck from paint chips. Let me show you. See here, you can see there's virtually no paint chips on the front of this. And 2006 with 240 something thousand miles on it, there should be tons of paint chips on it. I can tell you my 2016 Audi has got tons of paint chips on it already, because living in Denver, we do get rocks on the road, gravel on the road from the various trucks, and sand and stuff like that from the winters. So this truck has got it all on the front here, and that's made a big difference. So something to keep in mind. This bed has been Line-X just like the sides of the truck. So something I didn't expect until the first time I had rhino lining sprayed in on a vehicle that, on a truck that I had that didn't have it, is that it made it a lot quieter. The bed tends to work as a resonator and makes a lot of noise coming from the back. When you put this rhino lining in there, or the Line-X, it quiets it way down and makes a big difference in how quiet the truck is. So that's kind of a nice benefit on top of protecting everything and making it much better for you. Okay, another thing that this truck came with is this tow hitch down here. So where is it? There it is, with this tow hitch right here. So this tow hitch is aftermarket, and this truck is rated at 6,000 pounds towing capacity because it's got the 4-liter in it and it's a 4-wheel drive, which are higher than the 2-wheel drive and definitely with smaller engines. But rated at 6,000 pounds, and that comes in super handy for being able to tow stuff, tow light-duty trailers, 4-wheelers, lawn equipment, things like that. We can see, and I think this is pretty common with all aftermarket tow bars like this, and actually even some of the factory ones, is the paint just does not stay on them very well. Now keep in mind this truck was up in upstate Idaho where there's lots of snow, and they put gravel on the road up there. They don't put salt, so overall there's no issues with the rust getting into the bottom of the truck and what have you. But it's been hard on this, so you can see that's been flaking off. We're going to have to paint that, strip it down and paint it so that it doesn't get any worse. It's okay for now, but it's definitely something we're going to need to do. Second thing is if you look right here, got some pretty serious rust on this rear bumper. So this is no es bueno. So you can see the rust is, well, it's not flaking right there. It looks like it is, but it's not. But it's definitely bubbling up underneath there. So we're definitely going to have to work on getting that. That'll mean taking this off and sanding all this down, repairing the rust. It doesn't look like it's through at all, so it's just surface at this point. It's bubbling up under the paint, which would be relatively easy to fix, and then we'll just repaint this. But it looks to me like it's got it, yeah, pretty much just on the one side. So nothing to worry about there. Oh, here's another item on these Rangers, actually all Fords from this era. You can see this badge is coming apart here, and that's relatively normal. Eventually all of the blue will go away and it will be just a silver Ford emblem. So we're going to replace that because we like the Ford. We like it to look nice and new. So okay, so one of the tips for buying a used vehicle is to look at how the original owner took care of the vehicle. For example, does it have a lot of aftermarket parts on it? Aftermarket parts can be a good thing or they can be a bad thing. What do I mean by that? So if somebody has replaced a bunch of the factory components with aftermarket components, cheap aftermarket components, because they don't want to pay the higher price for the generally higher quality factory parts, then you're going to have a whole bunch of junk on your vehicle. If those are all second-rate aftermarket components, you're going to be in for a bad time. If they've replaced all that stuff with factory stuff, then that's going to tell you that that person cares about that vehicle. They're spending the extra money to get the factory stuff. If it's factory, most likely they either did it themselves because they know how, or they did it at the Ford dealership, or the actual dealership for the vehicle. In this case, it would be Ford. And that's a good sign. So let's take a look at this truck. I'll show you a couple things. All right, so if we come up here and we look, this truck's got these nice air deflectors on here, which these are super cool. And what do we see if we zoom in right there? Look at that. These are factory Ford air deflectors. I didn't even know Ford made these. So that's pretty cool. I thought those were aftermarket, but that just shows you the type of stuff that Jake did. He always had it taken care of. I went to an independent shop to get work done, but he was always buying new, used, or remanufactured Ford parts for anything that it needed. So just looking around on the vehicle when you're going through stuff, take a look and see if you see anything like that. That's a good sign that they're using the factory parts like that. Now the exception to that is if somebody's put a lot of aftermarket parts on the vehicle, but there are a lot of high performance or heavy duty or better aftermarket parts. There's plenty of aftermarket companies that make fantastic stuff that's better than the stock stuff for a lot of different reasons. That cold air intake that we showed you in the front, that's an excellent example of an aftermarket component that you want and that you would actually pay extra money for. So when you're inspecting a used vehicle, look around and see what kind of components that they've got on there. If you see stuff that's got a lot of factory emblems on there, like those like those air deflectors, that's a great sign. And if you see a lot of high performance stuff that you know costs a lot more than the stock stuff, like that K&N or exhaust or things like that, that's also going to be an excellent sign. What you don't want is a lot of aftermarket parts, cheap aftermarket parts that are not installed correctly. All that kind of stuff is going to be a good indicator of something that you might want to just walk on by. Okay, let's take a look at the interior on this thing. All right, this truck is a super cab, which means that it's got these extra set of doors in the back there. It's also got these little seats in the back. Let's take a look at these. So these little jump seats, you sit sideways with your feet facing the center. In this case, you only have one because there's a giant subwoofer over on that side. But normally you've got 4 seats. So if you've got a family, you're just starting out and you need a good all-around vehicle, this truck will definitely take 4 people, provided that the kids in the back don't have to be in car seats or booster seats and are able to sit in those. They're actually not too bad. My dad had a Nissan extra cab growing up, and my brother and I sat in the back of that a lot of times. It's fine for kids, definitely don't want to be sitting back there as an adult. While we're looking at this, let's go ahead and take a look at this. This is the only spot of excessive wear and tear on this truck. And the reason that it has this is from hopping in and out of the truck all the time. This is from pushing down on this as you jump in and out, and it flexes and it tears as you slide over this. And this part right here is actually from the seat belt. So when the seat belt's in place, it runs right across this, and that tends to wear it out. So if you see this in an otherwise excellent example of a Ranger that you're looking at, this is totally normal. As you can see, I don't know anybody who takes care of vehicles better than Jake does, and this is like this. So he was planning on getting this replaced. It just needs a new seat skin. It's actually pretty easy to install. We'll probably do that on one of the videos here, but that's pretty straightforward. Not a big deal. You can get new foam and new seat covers for this, so just keep that in mind if yours has that. Okay, just want to give you an idea of what the interior looks like. This has had the Takata airbag recall, so you can see it's got a nice brand new airbag and emblem right there. It's also got a nice new airbag over there. So this has got an aftermarket double DIN stereo in it. Feeds that subwoofer we were looking at a little bit ago. And it's also got the subwoofer control right there. So from the factory, it came with a tachometer, gas gauge, of course, temperature gauge, of course, and then the speedometer. We've got variable intermittent wipers, and it does not have auto headlights. You've got to remember to turn those on yourself. As previously mentioned, it's got the 5-speed automatic transmission in it, and it does have the overdrive lockout. So if you're hauling something heavy or you're towing something up a long grade, you need to lock out the overdrive gear. You could just kick that. It'll lock it down into the 4th gear, and the truck won't be shifting on you so much. Again, this is a 4-wheel drive model, and it has the switch here to just change it. There is no lever on the ground, to my knowledge. None of them had levers. They all had these switches by this time. So there's an actuator on the outside of the Borg-Warner transfer case, and when you switch that, the actuator just moves the transfer case to the right position. I have broken one of these, and it broke in 2-wheel drive and then would not go into 4-wheel drive anymore. That sucked. But the actuator sits on the outside of the transfer case. It's not super hard to change out. You can shift to high while the vehicle's moving, so if you notice that you're losing traction in the snow or whatever, you can go ahead and switch it into 4-wheel drive. You got to stop, put it in neutral to get it in 4-wheel low. Other than that, pretty standard. This is relative of the day. You can turn off the passenger airbag if you hate your passenger, I guess. And it's got air conditioning that works pretty well. We've also got power windows, power door locks. Those both work off of the remote. In addition to that, we've got fixed windows in the back. Those do not open. So if you're counting on being able to open those for a dog or something like that, they don't roll down and they don't pop out. Some other manufacturers have ones that pop out. These don't do it. We do, however, have a sliding rear window. So if you've got a dog that needs to be able to poke his head out, that might work for him. Otherwise, he's sitting up front. Okay guys, now comes the time in our show where we're going to do the road test. So we're going to go ahead and take it out on the highway, and we're going to see how it handles. Okay, the first thing I could say about this Ranger is it has an incredibly stiff suspension. It is not super compliant. As you can probably see in the camera, it's bouncing around quite a bit. This is not a particularly rough road that we're on. This is the road out of my neighborhood, and it's got some vertical lines that go across it, some horizontal lines that go across it, where they filled in the road from cracks. And that's it. The truck's bumping across every single one of those. It is not uncomfortable. It's not an uncomfortable ride, but it's definitely harsh. It's not like a sedan or even an SUV. I'd say it rides a lot harder than my 2500 Suburban does, which has a heavy-duty suspension on it. This is harsher than that. So that's going to be something to keep in mind. If you don't like a really harsh ride, a 4x4 Ranger is probably not for you. I know Jake has aftermarket shocks on this thing, but he told me that this is the factory springs. So we've got torsion bars in the front, and we've got the leaf springs in the back, and they are all definitely quite solid. So it's nice and solid, but it is harsh. Okay, so I've grabbed Tyler. Say hi, Ty.
Hello.
And just wanted to be able to talk to you while we were driving here. So Tyler's taking care of the driving work, and I'm going to talk about the Ranger. So overall, Ranger's got a great ride. As I mentioned, it's a little harsh. It's absolutely livable. Definitely not irritating. I like it. It's pretty comfortable. This particular one, definitely no rattles, no thunks, no funny noises coming from everything. A big part of that is this actual vehicle has been really well taken care of by Jake. But I think overall, knowing other Rangers that my family owns and the shape that they're currently in, these things tend to really hold up. So not a lot of bangs and rattles and clanging and stuff coming from the vehicle as you drive it. Pretty normal for these Rangers. They're pretty good vehicles all in all. Okay, acceleration is darn good. Like we mentioned, the thing takes off real well. It's got good power in this V6. The 3-liter that was available, my sister-in-law had that vehicle. I don't recommend it. It's not bad. It's not a bad vehicle, not a bad engine at all. It does a good job, and if that's all you can get, then that's fine. You won't be unhappy with it. It just doesn't have the punch that the 4-liter's got. 4-liter never feels like it's underpowered. The 3-liter, sometimes feels like it's a little underpowered. And in addition to that, doesn't get any better gas mileage than the 4-liter. So I'm not quite sure. I think Ford was going for a better gas mileage with that one so that they could make it a cheaper option. Didn't work out that way. So if you've got the 3-liter, that's fine, not a bad motor. But if you're looking for one to buy, definitely recommend the 4-liter. And again, after 2001, the 4-liter became an overhead cam motor instead of just an overhead valve motor like it was. The previous generation 4-liter is a good motor. In fact, my dad's very, very fast, but not as much power as this overhead cam motor, and not quite as good a gas mileage. All right, guys, that's a wrap on this review of a 2006 Ford Ranger. We're definitely going to go ahead and call this used. Absolutely a vehicle that we would recommend buying. Obviously, we did buy this one, but we definitely recommend this is one for you to buy. This particular Ranger, as we've mentioned, has been very well taken care of, but judging from my father's Ranger, which has not been particularly well taken care of, we can say that the Rangers are inherently good vehicles. They definitely stand up well. We definitely recommend them. I know on Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist you can find these vehicles for between $5,000 and $8,000 for a really good one, so you can definitely pick yourself up an awfully nice truck for not a huge amount of money. So that's going to be a wrap on this video. Really hope you enjoyed it. Love to get some comments and feedback on what you'd like to see more of in these reviews so we can make them exactly the way that you want. That's going to be it, guys. Thanks so much for watching. We love you. Take care. Bye.